KSJE.
Tune in for Philosophy Talk, the program that questions everything.
Except your intelligence.
Coming up, is the self an illusion?
Well, yeah. The self is nothing more than an ever-changing series of perceptions.
So you're saying you don't exist?
No, that's not what I was saying.
What do you mean by I?
Is the self an illusion? Next time on Philosophy Talk.
Listen to Philosophy Talk every Tuesday at noon on KSJE 90.9 FM, Farmington. San Juan Regional Medical Center is your community hospital, committed to making life better for the communities we are privileged to serve. In fact, better is our mission, improving lives through personalized health and care. What matters most to our patients matters most to us, offering a comprehensive range of inpatient, outpatient, and emergency care services so you can get the quality care you need right here at home. San Juan Regional Medical Center, celebrating life better here since 1910. "12 minutes past 8 o'clock. It is Monday morning, the 10th day of the 10th month. Good morning, everyone. I'm Scott Michlin. Thanks for tuning in to KSJE 90.9 FM over the air, of course, here in San Juan County. 103.3 FM over the air in Durango, Colorado, and streaming everywhere else on the planet from our website at ksje.com. Welcome also to our viewers who are watching this visual radio program. The video is streaming out live this morning to the KSJE Facebook page, our YouTube channel, and our Twitter account. So we're glad that you are with us this morning, everybody, because coming up, we're going to be talking about the San Juan Generating Station. The power plant west of Farmington has stopped producing power for the first time in almost 50 years. And what's next for the property? My guests will be talking about what they think what's next coming up in the next few moments right here on KSJE. So I hope you'll stay tuned for that conversation. Later on this hour, of course, we'll be checking in with Lewis Campbell from Synergy Computer Systems, talking technology at 8:50 a.m. And then next hour, Mick Hess will be here roving with the arts, and Mick is playing some music from Pasquale Naro, the composer that we don't hear too much from. So that's coming up next hour on KSJE. Don't forget, we also invite you to connect with us on our Instagram page, on social media as well. And if you're a podcast person, plenty of KSJE podcasts to subscribe to and listen to wherever you listen to podcasts. So check them out and subscribe today, wherever you get your podcasts from. Outside our studios here at San Juan College, it's a sunny Monday morning, a cooler Monday morning as well, 47 degrees at the moment. We're expecting a drier, cooler, and sunny week ahead. 70 degrees with sunshine today, 44 overnight. Mostly sunny tomorrow with a high of 73, 74 on Wednesday, 72 with sunshine on Thursday, and again mid to lower 70s for the weekend with overnight lows in the 40s. Well, let me introduce my guests who are here with me this morning, as I mentioned, to discuss the future of the San Juan Generating Station and some of the conversations that are being had in our community. Mike Eisenfeld is back from San Juan Citizens Alliance. Mike, always good to have you here. Thank you for coming back.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
You bet. Glad to have you here. Also, Norman Norvelle is here, and Norman is a former chemist at the Public Service Company of New Mexico who worked at the San Juan Generating Station. And so, Norman, good morning to you. Thank you for coming in. Appreciate it very much. And so, Mike Eisenfeld, let me start with you because, as I mentioned, the plant, the San Juan Generating Station, you and I have been talking together about this and other issues for, you mentioned a decade. I can't believe we're both that old, but okay, if you say so. We've been talking about this for 10 years or more. Energy and power has stopped being produced by that plant. It is shutting down or has shut down. And so this is something that has been a goal, I think, of yours, and because of cleaner air and other issues for a long time. So it's a good thing.
Yeah, well, in 2017, when 2 units were closed at San Juan Generating Station, the community was led to believe that the facility was going to be in place until 2053. And then economics changed, and basically in 2019, PNM announced that they were going to leave by 2022. And so at that point, we were sort of thought that it was going to be important for our community to have a transition plan. And about that same time, this startup, Acme Equities, or Enchant Energy as they became known, showed up and kind of said they have a solution, and we never thought it was a solution, and so here we are, and San Juan Generating Station is closed, and I think it's kind of bittersweet for the community because our organization and others were really adamant that the school district and the property taxes and the workers needed to be sort of compensated, and that's sort of our idea with the replacement projects that are hopefully coming in.
Right. And that's all been part of this conversation. And I think, as P&M was going through this process, they did say that some of the replacement power was going to be located here in San Juan County. There's others going to be in McKinley, I think, in Rio Arriba County as well. But some of it's supposed to be coming here, right? And it's just been delayed because of supply chain and who knows what else.
Yeah. We've been told that some of those projects are nearing completion with negotiations, particularly the solar projects that are going to be out. And, they certainly, it's probably not going to be like a, one-for-one job replacement, but could bring as many as 1,500 jobs to the community and would shore up the property taxes and Central Consolidated School District's funding, which were kind of key components of the transition that we thought was possible.
Right. And there's been a lot, I think, of state involvement in addition with that Energy Transition Act to get some money into this community for retraining and educational opportunities and things along that line. And it seems like the state's taken a role in trying to help through this transition because you can't just eliminate thousands of jobs and expect nothing bad to happen.
Yeah, there's like $40 million out for transition, but I think that the jury's still out on what sort of projects are going to be funded, and I believe there's going to be a meeting on Wednesday in Shiprock to discuss that, and
right.
We certainly think that the Shiprock community should be kind of a recipient of some of that money, and then certainly projects that are not fossil fuel based. So I think that's where we're at, is that San Juan Generating Station is closed. We consider it completely closed now. We don't think that the Enchant people have really accomplished what they need to accomplish, and if they had a real project. And so it's time for the community to move on.
Well, let me bring Norman Norvelle into the conversation here, too. And Norman, again, thank you for being here. And you are a former chemist at P&M, and so you kind of know a little bit of the ins and outs of the plant and what it takes. Now that it's shut down, you just can't start it back up again on a dime, can you?
No. It takes quite a bit to start a coal-fired power plant back up. Even right now, from coal shutdown, they'd probably need a month to bring it back online just for one unit. And that's all they could bring online right now.
Right, and that would be expensive, I would assume, too, right? Once it's shut down, I mean,
they'd probably have to do a lot of maintenance before
right.
it could be done, because basically they planned 4 or 5 years ago to end on this date, and so they didn't buy the parts and supplies they needed to keep it running. They just let it go on and, kept it going to finish it off.
Right. I mean, I can understand that. If I'm a major company like P&M and I'm shutting down this major plant, I don't want to invest a lot of money into keeping it going. I'm just going to make it get through what we needed to get it through and then shut it down.
Yes, and that's what they've done.
And you've got some concerns about the Enchant project as well, the carbon sequestration and some of the things that Mike Eisenfeld was talking about. That is kind of the idea that was proposed to the city of Farmington. The city is partnering with Enchant or talking with Enchant about taking ownership of that plant and continuing it. Of course, now that it's shut down, but you've got some concerns about that whole idea of being able to keep the plant running and sequester some of that carbon that's coming out of that plant.
Yes, almost all the technical papers I've read from Los Alamos and all the various agencies do not think it'll work. I don't think it'll work because coal-fired power plants, no matter how hard you work to try to clean the stack gases up, you just can't get them to the point where a main system will work well on it. I was also a senior chemist with El Paso after I left P&M. We had the amine systems out at Chaco, but it was for natural gas. Natural gas don't have all the contaminants that a coal-fired plume does.
Right, totally different types of emissions, I suppose,
yeah.
Right? And
you got all these metals.
Right. And I think I've always heard that our coal is not the cleanest burning of coal that is found here in this part of the country.
We have our coal is not good coal. It's just, it has a lot of sand and silica in it, and it eats the units up, and the water walls and all the furnace. And so this hasn't been easy coal to use for a power plant. I was at a power plant in Plains as a consultant, and they actually shipped their coal on a railroad system from Wyoming. And then they took their fly ash and bottom ash, which is the byproducts of the generating power, they sent them back to Wyoming to be buried.
Gotcha. On that rail line, probably.
Yeah, and they had, to run the same size unit, they had about a fourth the manpower that P&M had, or San Juan Generating Station had. A lot of that was due to their good coal.
Right. And I guess the economics worked that they could afford to send that coal by rail all that distance, right?
They could ship it from Wyoming and take the waste products back to Wyoming. It was cheaper.
Right, at that time. But the economics of coal and energy have changed recently.
Yes, this has been 20, 30 years ago, and
right.
I was there.
Right. Mike Eisenfeld, it's not very efficient, I guess, or economically viable to run a coal plant these days.
No, I mean, basically you're seeing sort of that, when San Juan Generating Station was built in 1972 and kind of came online 50 years ago, the economics were conducive for utilities to be investing in energy export. And so now, you've got P&M and Tucson Electric Power and the other former and current owners at San Juan Generating Station trying to get out of here and avoid continuing liabilities. And so basically, City of Farmington owns 5% or 43 megawatts at San Juan Generating Station. It's an 847 megawatt unit. Unit 1 doesn't even have cooling towers. There's no coal. Purportedly, the water has been given to the Navajo Gallup project,
the pipeline project, the Navajo,
the Navajo Gallup water pipeline project.
And the reservoir.
The water was held by the Jicarilla Apache tribe, and supposedly that water that was used to cool San Juan Generating Station will now be part of the Navajo Gallup project. But basically, like, when you look at sort of the technical aspects of a complicated situation like this, lots of moving parts, where's the coal coming from? San Juan mine is closed. Where's the water? They don't have any. What kind of equipment would be required for carbon capture? They would literally require one unit of San Juan Generating Station to just power up the carbon capture, carbon sequestration equipment. And we
generating that power to run the sequestration equipment and not even be able to sell that power.
Carbon capture, and then they would have to send the carbon dioxide on as an unbuilt pipeline to a sequestration site. And we were just heard from New Mexico Tech that they don't have a sequestration site as yet.
Gotcha. And again, the idea that the city had proposed was that this would be somewhat seamless. The plant would just cease operations from P&M and pick back up with this new operator of Enchant, and all this would start working. But that's not happened because of who knows why. But now the plant is shut down, difficult for the plant to restart. The city is talking about getting ownership of the plant. There's been stories in the media about that legal fight.
They said they were in litigation, and then they dropped it to arbitration. And I would just say that that's just sort of a sign that they've got nothing. And what they did, the city basically said, these hedge funders, Acme Equities, they're great. They're going to get all these investments, and it's now up to like $1.6 billion. And the city said, we're not on the hook financially. And if it doesn't work out, well, we gave it our best shot. And I would just say that, yeah, you gave it your best shot, and it's time to throw in the towel. There's a lot of issues with legal fees. There's a lot of issues with what the position is. And whether folks want to kind of recognize it or not, this project's way behind schedule. I mean, they're talking about carbon capture, carbon sequestration equipment being ready to go in 2027 now. And their only hope really would be to run that plant as is, which is not something that anybody should expect to happen.
Right. Norman Norvelle, let me come back to you a little bit about being able to run that plant as is, because a lot of things have, as you were talking to us too, have kind of gone away. The maintenance and, as Mike was saying, some of the other cooling towers and things like that have not been replaced, or maybe been replaced with temporary structures and things along that line. Is it feasible and economical to start up a plant and a coal mine, because you're going to need fuel for it, and the mine is now shut down as well, and all those jobs have gone away? You were telling me that all the folks who knew what was up out there are either retired or gone.
Yeah, they'd have to build a whole new workforce. But the thing is, they could actually build a combined cycle turbine natural gas plant cheaper and remove the carbon cheaper than they could to keep San Juan Station going. And the main reasons the city wanted the San Juan Station going was for the revenue and for the employees.
The jobs, which is
admirable. It was a good political thing. We're going to save your jobs, and you'll be able to stay here, and we'll still get the taxes. It just isn't reality.
Right. And
it's false hope.
Right. And the idea to be able to capture the emissions from a natural gas plant are a little bit different and maybe more feasible, is what you're saying.
They've been successful with an amine capture system for natural gas. They've never been successful with coal. And Petronova, who was their big example, is shut down, and any other station, I can't remember what it was right offhand, is shut down also. And they basically give up on trying to remove carbon dioxide from coal with an amine system.
Right.
I mean, from the flue gas.
Right, I see. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, so in 2019, when Acme Equities showed up, they were basically touting that they could replicate a project that was done in Texas called Petronova. And Petronova has since been shut down. And so basically, all of these carbon capture, carbon sequestration projects that were funded by the Department of Energy, 0 of 11 have been successful, and they were all considered demonstration projects. And so we're concerned that Department of Energy needs to sort of get over the idea that these are now demonstration projects. They've all failed.
Haven't they sent money for this project too?
Yeah, so this project Enchant has two grants that were provided. One was a front-end engineering design study that was originally funded for $5.8 million. And the thing is, that seems like a lot of money, but it's dispersed to all these subcontractors. And so like Mitsubishi was involved,
Sure.
and Sargent and Lundy, that's an engineering firm. And so, what happens is that, it's all parceled out, and then kind of people just start disappearing. And so the Acme Equities guys, or Enchant Energy guys, there were 3 of them, hedge funders, they're all gone. And now they've got like a utility person, Sydney Crane from Utah, who's here, and she just keeps saying, well, I can't discuss that. That's a non-disclosure. Or, yeah, we do have investors, but once the feed study's done, and the feed study's 2 years overdue. And so what we're concerned about is that Department of Energy just sort of keeps this process going where they're parceling out money. And then there's also a lot of things associated with carbon sequestration that are just unevaluated. And that process alone, to sequester a large amount of carbon dioxide in somebody's community, that could take 5 to 7 years.
Right. Right. But aren't some of these things that we're talking about just so new that they do need to be looked at and studied, just like you're talking about from New Mexico Tech, to say this will work or this won't work, and then you can determine that because no one's ever maybe done it on such a scale before?
Yeah, but, as far as we knew, New Mexico Tech was proceeding successfully and had a carbon sequestration site about 20 miles north of Farmington, but they recently disclosed that site was unsuccessful. So now they've got to go back to the starting line. And for us, as a kind of public interest organization, we're very cognizant of sort of the permitting processes and around here, because you've got federal land and you've got tribal land and you've got a lot of sort of like issues. Indeed, yeah, we want to know what's the plan.
Sure. I think a lot of people would like to know that, too. My guest this morning, we were talking about the future of the San Juan Generating Station, the power plant west of Farmington, of course. It has stopped producing power. It is owned by the Public Service Company of New Mexico, the majority owner, but the city of Farmington has a partial ownership, as do some other utilities, and the city is in a now arbitration to gain control and ownership of that property because of their ongoing issues with Enchant Energy to come up with this carbon capture idea to keep the plant running, but it is no longer running, and those employees have left, and there's only a skeleton crew at the plant and at the mine. And Norvelle, we were talking before we came on the air this morning about just how many people are still employed out at the plant. Probably not too many, right? Just to keep things going and to help in shutting things down in an organized way.
I think they have 24 people right now, maybe 36. It's less than 50 people at the plant, and they're shutting it down and laying it up.
Right. And the same thing with the mine as well, right? If you're shutting down operations at the coal mine, you need to just kind of wrap it up and have people on staff for a while to do that too.
They probably have 12 people out there cleaning up.
Right. And Mike Eisenfeld, eventually there'll be some reclamation work that should start or is starting maybe already too. Because that's the process, I guess, that would be done in a typical situation when a plant is decommissioned and a coal mine is decommissioned to shut it down. The reclamation work is expected to start happening at some point in the future.
Yeah, so San Juan Mine and San Juan Generating Station are sort of a mix of state and federal oversight, and so there's bonds, in particular for the coal mine reclamation, and I believe that there's going to be 50 workers working on reclamation for the next 5 years. And then the plight of the San Juan Generating Station is a little bit more convoluted because there are going to be decommissioning plans, and then some of the utilities that are former owners out there want the facility to be demolished. They want it off their books. They're calling it sort of like generational responsibilities, and so we'll see what happens with that. In the past, PNM had talked about retiring it in place, putting up a fence, and that's not going to be adequate. And so the other issue that the city of Farmington is going to have to grapple with in arbitration is whether they have a right to any of the permits. This is now a closed facility, so they might not have the rights to air permits. Some of the former owners may want to sell some of the equipment out there and actually drop that facility. So I'm not sure what city of Farmington thinks they're going to get out of arbitration, but I don't think that they'll be successful. I don't think that they've got the balance sheet to really say to Farmington Electric Utility System customers that this is the sort of thing that they should be investing in. All along we've said that there need to be a contingency plan for replacing the energy out there, and we really should be looking at renewables and ways to sort of balance things out with the quality of life that the city is professing that we're now a part of.
Right, and so let's talk about that a little bit, because then with the plant shutting down, the coal mine shutting down, those jobs going away or gone, what replaces that? We mentioned a little bit. PNM has some plans for some solar to replace that power. Of course, no one here is a PNM customer. All that power is going to Central New Mexico and the PNM customers. So that leaves the Farmington Electric Utility without that generation from their ownership of the plant, and they've got to figure out where to get that from. But that's where things are. But the jobs are gone. You said there might be a few jobs coming in with this replacement power, but certainly not a one-to-one replacement. And that's what the situation is. And so what's next, I guess?
Yeah. So our organization, we intervened in a number of cases before the Public Regulation Commission, with the idea being that we needed to advocate for this area and transition. And so, part of the mix certainly could be energy storage, utilizing the stranded assets like the transmission lines, brownfield development for renewables, the use of substations. So at the end of August, it was announced that there's a kickoff for one of the solar projects, San Juan Solar, and so we're very optimistic that that'll happen. Could create as many as like 500 construction jobs for 2 or 3 years. That's more jobs than I'm aware of that any other industry is bringing in. Maybe some of the things that are happening with biotech and stuff like that. I mean, I think that it's time for our community to start being innovative and think about, what are the burgeoning economic opportunities. And then, I think that, one of the things that's going on is that, the city of Farmington was so adamant, sort of in their position, that San Juan Generating Station was going to continue, and now it's evident that that's not going to happen, and so it's time to move on, and we're hopefully part of the solution rather than sort of like kind of struck in the sense that we're not capable of moving on.
Gotcha. Thank you, Mike Eisenfeld. Norman Norvelle, I want to come back to you a little bit about what happens when you decommission a power plant and try to clean that up. And I know as a chemist, you certainly knew a lot about some of the emissions and some of the things that were maybe going on at the plant and how to keep it clean or what would need to be happening. And so to kind of reclaim land that a former coal-fired power plant was on, that's a big job, is it not?
Yes, it will be. Most places prefer to fence the property off and walk away and leave it for taxpayers, but I don't think they can do it with San Juan because of all the agreements that's been signed. And demolition of that plant will take a lot of construction workers.
Right.
And then the reclamation is going to be a lot of work too. So there'll probably be a lot of people used for the decommissioning and demolition, and also for the I'm sorry, I'm missing words here.
That's all right.
The reclamation of the land.
Sure. Well, and there were some other maybe more hazardous things on the land too, weren't there? It's just one of the byproducts of running a power plant, aren't there?
For many years, in fact always, we dumped the waste from the power plant. We had ponds, but a lot of that waste went to the mines. And so now that there's a plume headed towards the San Juan River, and PNM has tried to put in environmental equipment, pumping stations and stuff to handle that plume and treat it and pump it up to a reservoir. But I think it's going to be inadequate for what we need.
So
the monitoring wells are just simply not enough. And they've got a few, but not very many monitoring wells. The problem is we need monitoring wells south of the property in the Shumway Arroyo, more of them.
So
track that plume.
What you're saying is there's underground movement of contaminated water or liquids heading towards the river, the San Juan River, and it's being monitored, but there's really not any way to stop it.
They're trying. They put a slurry wall in, but I just don't think their efforts are going to be adequate. But what we need is we really need more monitoring wells downstream or further down the arroyo from what PNM has. It's not on PNM property. It'd be on private property.
Gotcha.
Some of it would be on Bureau reclamation. No.
It would
not
be
Bureau reclamation, but the Bureau of
Land management.
Land management.
Yeah.
Got it.
So I mean, one of the things that's going on here is that these utilities, they all have a responsibility for the liabilities.
Right.
And so if you're in negotiations with these major utilities, and you're in the city of Farmington, it's like, are you going to take on these liabilities? And then if you have a startup like Acme Equities or Enchant, and they haven't secured any money, they had no investors that are known. Why would anyone want to assume that they would be able to deal with the financial responsibilities associated with a 50-year-old facility like this? So I kind of think that, what we're hopeful of is that City of Farmington will acknowledge that, they gave it their best shot and didn't work out, and time to move on. But these Enchant people, they haven't accomplished anything.
Right. Well, I imagine they would say that they have, but I understand what you're saying too, because there's not a lot of contracts signed, at least that's being disclosed, and not a lot of movement on the property for sure, since it's now shut down.
And that's why San Juan Generating Station closed, because folks were concerned about the economics of the facility and are basically it's a facility that is no longer feasible.
But some would say if there's money set aside to reclaim that property when the plant is shut down, that money would transfer to any subsequent owners. Isn't that how it should work?
Yeah, then that may be the case. I mean, we're not privy to the negotiations, but when kind of you hear that the city of Farmington is litigating, what are they litigating on? Any judge, in my opinion, would say go back and negotiate with the other owners. And if you have a transaction and a transfer, then you have a transfer. If not, then something was wrong.
That seems to be the city's point of view, is that they should get ownership of this property since nobody else wants it.
But they own 5% of an 847 megawatt facility. It would cost billions of dollars to get this facility back up. The carbon capture, carbon sequestration will never work. There's just too many moving parts, and so little has been accomplished by Enchant.
Yeah.
So anyway, I would suggest that that the city of Farmington would have to come to the citizens and present a comprehensive and cohesive plan, and I've seen nothing.
Norman Norvelle, I'll give you the final word because we're almost out of time.
Under the Superfund laws in RECRA, the liability for the plant is forever.
Right.
So that means all the partners in that plant, which includes the city of Farmington, are stuck with cleaning that up forever. And it's going to be a lot of money. And I don't blame P&M for wanting to shut the plant down and get on with doing the reclamation, because it'll be cheaper now than it will be down in years later.
Sure. Makes sense. And I guess there's stuff that we know and maybe stuff we don't know about what's going on under that plant, right?
Yeah.
And so there you are. Well, gentlemen, I appreciate you coming in this morning. Mike Eisenfeld, Norman Norvelle, thank you both for your time and your expertise and certainly in joining me this morning. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, both of you, my guests here on KSJE. And thank you for joining me as well, everyone. Back with more in just a moment. KSJE and San Juan College present the Student Success Coaching Tip of the Week.
Hello, it's me, Emin Chi, from the Student Achievement Center. We're bringing you Week 8 of Coaching Tips of the Week. Midterm tips. The best students pre-learn what they're going to cover in class, often by reading over their textbooks, then taking great notes in class, and finally reviewing all of the materials after class. That may sound like a lot, but it's more effective than cramming for long days and nights before exams. Whether it's math or history, retyping, or at least tidying up and annotating your notes from class is a great way to clarify concepts and help material sink in. Return frequently to previously covered concepts to keep them fresh and utilize them as you are progressing. As you build connections between concepts, you broaden your understanding of the material. Nothing beats flashcards as a study tool, and they are an easy way to notate important concepts for future studying and review. If you don't understand something, address it immediately. Go to office hours, work with a friend, meet with a tutor. Nothing derails learning like building on a shaky foundation.
The Student Success Coaching Tip of the Week, presented by KSJE and the Student Achievement Center at San Juan College. KSJE is supported by Aztec Motocross. Located on Highway 173, Aztec Motocross offers a safe and competitive racing environment for the growing off-road and outdoor industry. Upcoming racing weekends, September 24th and 25th, and October 22nd and 23rd. Also, the New Mexico State Championship Motocross Race Series, October 8th and 9th. Find out more online at aztecmotocross.com or 505-393-5222.
Healthcare is